industry, like in the concert industry, the opera industry. Also, it's the majority of the audience are elderly people, and so whether or not they'll feel safe to come back into the theater in droves when this is all over, and how long. I'm sure they will eventually. People love beauty. People love art. People don't want to be trapped in their homes for the rest of their lives. But how much risk will they take?
Right. It's going to definitely take some time. And I would imagine that's also going to drive the financial impact for a lot of people that are in your situation, because opera houses. I've got a friend. I talked to a few friends that are impacted by this very directly, like you. I have a friend that's a blues guitarist and singer, and she's actually performing online and has a PayPal account for tips. A friend of mine is in New Orleans, and he's just trying to ride it out. Another friend of mine here in the Chicago area, same thing, piano player and singer, just trying to figure out, okay, what am I going to do to get through this?
Right.
Same thing with opera, but I would imagine the dynamic is going to be a bit different, at least at first, because the opera companies, they don't have the funds to be able to put on the show. I mean, it's going to take a while for people to dig out of this, don't you think?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to speculate either. Maybe everybody will be, or majority of the people will be excited to be, let's get this thing cranked up, and let's get back to normal as fast as possible. And
yeah,
I'm hoping that that's going to be more of the human nature than the other side of the coin.
Yeah. So you're
in the going to, well, probably in the blues clubs and the rock clubs and that area that might rebound a little faster than maybe. And those places, they hold up 50, 100, 200. That's but when you're looking at the Lyric Opera of Chicago at 5,000,
yeah,
it's a bigger number.
Yeah, and it's a lot more expensive of a production. I mean, you're talking about a lot that goes into it. Yeah, it's not just paying the performers. It's the sets, the costumes, just renting the score probably is.
Well, certainly renting the hall, the orchestra, the backstage crew, the set, costumes, and each of the soloists. It's a big, because I've started an opera company here in Chicago, actually.
Oh, okay.
We were planning, we're still planning on our premiere season, something I've been working on for 3 years now, about Opera Festival of Chicago.
Okay.
And we're still planning for our May 2021 launch. So we're in an okay position, because all the money we've had coming in over the last year, we're still in the black, which is good.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that I've been doing with this downtime. We're writing our bylaws now. We're putting our board together, getting our 501c3 in mind. And, but yeah, we're following very closely what some of the other opera festivals are doing. Like Santa Fe still hasn't canceled. Glimmerglass hasn't canceled. Some are holding out, seeing if this will lift, and I just can stay hopeful. I just have to stay positive and be like the willow tree and just be super flexible, whatever happens.
Yeah, there you go. Well, having a couple of cocktails doesn't hurt either.
Right. Well, don't you love the fact that they'll keep the liquor stores open as because they sell peanuts and pork rinds or something? People want their alcohol.
That's right. And just think it was illegal 100 years ago.
Yes. Are
I
the
think
newly opened marijuana shops open? I mean, I would think that would be essential for a lot of.
no, I think they are open. I think they kept those open.
Oh,
So
that's.
we don't have that here up here in Wisconsin. So
Who are you, by the way? Kenosha?
yeah, I'm in Kenosha. Yeah.
No.
So yeah, Wisconsin, we're still behind the curve on the whole marijuana thing, but
Yeah. Well, at least there's no state lockdown, so I guess there's probably no people driving into the city.
well,
The butchers are still doing good business.
the funny thing I heard is because of all the taxes that Illinois is putting on weed, you're better off. You're still cheaper off buying from your dealer up here.
Oh,
So, I don't know. I've never bought it before. I won't say I haven't smoked it or tried it before, but I've never bought it, so I wouldn't know. I've always relied on the kindness of other people in that respect.
Okay.
So besides, okay, so yeah, it's difficult financially for you with this whole thing. As far as just being, you said you do go out, you run every day, but how do you keep yourself sane the rest of the time when you know? Because typically for me, I like to go out, you know.
Yeah. Oh, me too. I'm kind of an. Can you be an extroverted introvert? I love going out.
That's what I call myself.
Oh yeah, I love going out and just that's why I love Paris so much. I love and Europe. I love the cafe lifestyle. You know, and when I'm in Paris, I can just sit at a cafe all day, reading my book or write my postcards and just watch the world go by, and nobody bothers you. You can milk a espresso for hours. Cafe. And I do miss the cafe lifestyle and just getting out but yeah, it's I guess it's my love of the surreal world. It's very surreal right now. I try not to judge anything. I just let it go, see what's happening. I do feel myself getting a little like, where's my feet, where's gravity type situation. Mm-hmm. And even the 3 miles, that I'm running a day, I can see the pounds creeping in anyway. I'm just sitting around and
yeah.
What I am doing, I mean, I'm learning, I'm studying scores that are on my dream board, quote unquote, that I've wanted to do in case, just in case they're ready. But I'm doing that, taking some time to read some novels that I've been wanting to, that've been stacking up. I'm watching all the James Bond movies back to back because there's a package. I don't know. I discovered it online, or not online, but on Prime. So I thought, why the hell not?
Yeah, right.
But yeah, it's very strange. It's very surreal.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Thankfully, I have enough put away that I can coast for a while. But it's like the bathtub. You pull that plug out, and you see the bank account start to go.
Yeah, yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe I'm a little panacea right now, and maybe next time this time next year, see where we're at. How long my hair is getting? I decide I'm not going to cut my hair until this is over.
Well, the funny thing is, I was scheduled to get a haircut back in February, or was it I think the end of January, and I was busy, and I'm like, it's $20, 20 whatever bucks or whatever I can spend on something a little bit more important. I'll put it off for another week or two, and then all of a sudden this hit, and now it's getting ridiculous, and my hair gets super curly. So it's been kind of weird. I haven't trimmed this.
Just let it be.
Just let it be. I haven't trimmed this very much either. once in a while when it's bugging me, but yeah. But here's the thing that I've liked the most about it is not wearing pants.
Wait a minute. Okay, the image that came in was.
I mean, I wear something. It's like sweatpants, but the whole idea of not putting on pants with a belt and it's great. I like that.
All right. Do they have like a Harley Davidson logo or something?
No, I'm not a Harley rider. I've got an Indian.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Wow, I'd love to see it. Is it a Scout or a Chief?
It's a Chief. It's a dark horse.
Wow.
So, but who knows? I might have to sell the damn thing to be able to stay in the house. Who knows?
They're beautiful. They're beautiful.
I'll send you a picture or two. It's but and I love that thing.
I'd like to get a little Scout or a Sportster to drive around now.
Yeah, the Scout. I've test driven the Scout. It's a nice ride.
Is it really?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh hell yeah. Well, if you get something, we'll go for a ride sometime.
Okay. I've always kept my license up, but I haven't had a bike for a long time yet.
Okay. I just started riding like 6 years ago. I was always terrified of it, and then finally I'm like, well, that should be why I try it. So I bought a friend of mine's scooter, loved it, so I went and got the license, and my goal was to get the Indian, which I eventually did. So I love riding. Which reminds me, I was going to bring up. So you have roots in Kenosha. Were you born and raised in Kenosha, or?
My father was.
Okay.
My grandparents were from Italy.
Okay.
They emigrated and ended up in Kenosha. My grandfather came through. He came through New York, and then was in Chicago for a while, and had a tavern with a buddy of his in Chicago, and then I think a lot of people in Kenosha, the organization came by and wanted protection for his tavern, and so he opted out of that. I'll put it in a gentle way, and he sold his half, and he went up to over the border to Kenosha, where I think a lot of Italians went I should look into the history of the Italian American in Kenosha more. There were a lot there, and he worked for the Simmons bedding factory, and then my grandmother, she worked for American Motors when it was there.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I remember once asking my they both passed away now, and I remember asking her, what's all the things you've been through in life, what's been your favorite? And she goes, when I worked for American Motors, and and she said, I worked my way up to a manager in American Motors, and in Italy at that time, a woman could have never done that, and she was very proud of that. So. Okay. Yeah.
So then,
I have a lot of family in Kenosha, and a lot of cousins, and my cousin Steve just passed away. He was a great guitarist, and my other cousin Chris is an awesome drummer, and he's in a band. And then they're the Coleman family, and then the Wasilevich family up there. They've really doing well. He's big with Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Okay.
They're great. I love them all. They're great.
Well, that's great. So where did you grow up? I think it was in the Chicago area then?
I grew up in Chicago, but I was born in La Crosse.
Oh.
I was born in La Crosse, and we lived in Kenosha for a short time. When my dad got a job here, we moved down here.
Because that's really what got the Kenosha Symphony to get you to come. You know, it was a great local tie. Was that you had ties to Kenosha?
That was an amazing concert.
Oh, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fantastic. And the one thing, uh, it I have to apologize because I missed some of the beginning of it because I forgot to hit record. So I'm going to restate some of what we talked about. And
At least you're honest. I love that.
But hey, we'll roll with it, and we'll make it look.
I've had critiques on operas I've done where I know the journalist was not even there.
Oh God, Jesus.
One very famous Chicago one to be
really,
as a matter of fact.
Okay. Well, so you performed in Kenosha with the Kenosha Symphony, and which I'll go back and restate. I haven't seen them for a few years now, but at the time, I mean, Miriam Burns, a great conductor, and she had built that orchestra up to something, you know, a very great, good orchestra. And so you performed, and I'll have to say, and I'm not just being a sycophant here, but you were fantastic. You not only, of course, to be an opera singer that travels the world, you have to be pretty goddamn good. But you not only have the great voice, but your stage presence and you just you had everybody in the palm of your hand the entire time you were on the stage.
Thank you.
And it's a lot of charisma, which, you know, I've seen different performers. I'll have to also admit I've never been to an opera before.
Okay.
I'm a big symphony guy, but and I absolutely love arias and choruses and things like that. I've just never gone to see one. I'm talking too much, but my sons are both big into music in different ways. My older son is big into, what is it called? It's beyond death metal. It's and he's a fantastic guitarist. It's the European, Germanic, Eastern European metal, death metal type stuff. And my younger son is he's into hip hop and electronic and stuff like that. And they both have made their own recordings and things, but I've got them definitely early on, got them into the classical music. And we do have an agreement that someday soon we're going to go see an opera together.
Welcome to the Festival of Chicago.
Absolutely. That'll be one of the first on our list then in 2021 when you open up. But so yeah, it was just fun watching you because you made it a lot of fun, you know.
It's a great art. It's really truly a great art form. It takes in not only the music and the poetry, but
a lot of acting
and construction and I mean every walk of life goes into making an opera. Mm-hmm. You have lighting designers and construction people and trucking people, moving sets and costumers and designers and it's an incredibly inclusive art form.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
And you know the idea of the diva and the divo are long gone. That the crazy, yes, there's one or two hangers on left that you'll meet, but most of the big stars, they know what it takes to do an opera, and they're so kind, and they're so, you know, they know how many people it takes for them even to be standing on that stage and some light not hitting them on the head. So it's yeah, it's a big art form, definitely.
Well, so because I was going to ask you, because you went to Juilliard.
Yes.
So you know, so let me just back up a little bit. What was it that made you want to get into opera? Because At the time you were growing up, I would imagine, everybody else is, wants to be a rock star.
That was me. Absolutely.
So what got you deciding, okay, I'm going to follow this path?
Okay, I'll tell the story, but have you told the story so much that you wonder if it's true anymore? Yeah, I have no musical training. I really had no musical training.
Okay.
We were lower middle class family. My dad was a teacher, and but I grew up in the 60s and 70s, so it was a very liberal time, very open-minded time, and schools were into lots of music programs and art programs, and they threw me into chorus when I was 7 years old. And at 7 years old, you just do what your teacher tells you.
Yeah, right.
So every year I was in the chorus, and then by about maybe 5th grade, they started giving me, Franco, you do the solo here. Hey, you just do the solo. I didn't know if I didn't even conceptually think, do I have a good voice or not? I just was. But then by junior high school, I really started to like music, and I liked being around people, and but I had enough of the chorus stuff, and so when I got to high school, I ran into a couple friends right away, and I said, let's get a band together. Let's start and it was the classic suburban garage band. Back then in the 70s, we were playing in garage. Nobody would call the police. Nobody, if you weren't breaking windows, you were okay. And we were playing in garages all over town, and it was great. And we had a few gigs, but all the bands of the 70s were really, like, if you think about it, Led Zeppelin and Deep Purple, The Who, Journey, they were all really high-voiced male singers,
Yeah.
And I was screaming in falsetto and trying to get these notes. And then so we were covering, like, a lot of those bands' music back then. And then we graduated, and the drummer went to U of I, and the guitarist left, and he joined another band, and was like, hey, I thought we were all going to be rock stars. And, So it was my first dose of reality. I'm on my own.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't go to university right away. I went to a local community college, and I picked up the Chicago phone book. You remember phone book?
Oh, yeah.
And I flipped open to the yellow pages and looked at voice teachers, and they had a section of voice teachers. And there was one guy who was teaching at Oakton Community College, and that's where I wanted to go. And he happened to be a tenor in the Chicago Symphony Orchestra chorus. And his name is Carl Lorenz. And I went to him. I was 18 and very impressionable and looking for direction. And he was a very Germanic, very passionate, and kind of authoritarian and really disciplined guy.
Mm-hmm.
And we just clicked.
Huh.
And so my lesson was never delineated by time. It was always just like a lesson is a lesson. It could be an hour. It could be 3 hours. It could be however long. And at the end of the lesson, we usually would watch the Bears game if it was on a Sunday. And I was always a Packer fan, so just to let you, Wisconsin, even though,
Well,
even though the year that they won the Super Bowl was pretty cool. But and at the end of the lesson, he'd give me a stack of his records to take home. And
really?
I don't know of another teacher who does that.
Huh.
And I've studied with many teachers, great teachers, some not so good teachers. There's a couple of really wonderful teachers here in Chicago, a couple in New York. But over the years, I have come back to Carl. I'm still working with him now.
Oh, really?
And he has, I might have been his first well-known student, but he's has several singers at the Metropolitan, and Eileen Perez is his superstar soprano. She's a Warner recording artist. She's extremely well-known, and she's also from Chicago area. And Carl's just still out in the suburbs, and now I go out, have a lesson, and we end up talking for several hours. Then he cooks me dinner, and like what I pay him doesn't even pay for the dinner that we have after the lesson's over. But that's the kind of guy he is. He's a great disciplinarian. He's a great technician. He's and so I've come full circle. Yeah.
So, and you're a baritone, as am I. It's funny that you mentioned that too, because for me, it was the same thing. I never was in a band, but I was always singing. And, you look at Zeppelin and you look at Rush and all those, and those singers are just way up there. I'm like, how the hell am I ever going to do that? And I stopped doing, I sang, but not that type of singing. And finally, it was maybe 12 years ago, I finally discovered, hey, I can sing Sinatra really well.
There you go.
And I wish I had discovered that back when I was in my late teens, early 20s.
Right.
But that would have actually changed the trajectory of things for me. So you went on to Juilliard and other things. But as far as your training goes, was it straight from Oakton to Juilliard? Did you?
No. I got my undergrad in the University of Wisconsin in La Crosse.
Okay.
And what a great school that was. I don't know what it's like anymore, but at the time, they had a fantastic theater department. There were two professors up there, Robert Sutter's Joyce and Richard Tinnap. They were amazing, and they had an incredible theater department. And the music department also had an opera workshop, and we did one or two operas a year. And I remember I took my syllabus to Carl before I went to La Crosse, and he goes, okay, let me see what you're going to take this class, and you're going to study. And he looked through it, he goes, you're going to take this and this and this and this, and okay. And I went in and I auditioned for the opera workshop right away. And so after the audition, they called all the singers up on stage for the opera that they were going to do. It was Gilbert Sullivan at the beginning.
Okay.
And they said, Franco, you're going to do this role. And I had the score, and I started looking through, and I raised my hand and said, it's the biggest part. Yeah. You're going to be perfect for that. And I was like, and at the time, it took me all semester to learn the role. I was completely underwater, and I had to find my way out. But then the transformation of being on stage,
Yeah. Yeah.
something happens,
Yeah.
It's something amazing. I can't really describe it. I'm sure sports figures or some other people feel the same way, but something happens where this is it. This is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the director of that show said, Franco, you're really good on stage. You should go to the theater department and audition for the theater. And I decided, okay, because they did one opera a year, but they did 6 or 7 theater shows during the year. And so, and I loved straight. I wasn't so crazy about musicals originally.
Okay.
I liked opera and I liked really dramatic straight theater, but that middle ground, it took me a while to love those, boy meets girl, boy loses girl type thing, musical theater. But over the years, I've really discovered the beauty of it, but it took me. But I did a lot of theater and a lot of straight theater and a couple operas a year. And when I left La Crosse, I was really on the fence still about if I wanted now to go into theater or stay in opera. And I decided I was going to do 1 year of only opera and see how it really focused and see how that came out. Because I had gotten a job right away out of La Crosse in a children's theater group in Minneapolis. So I did that for about 15 weeks. And then I came back to Carl and he said, you need to go to Europe. So I went to Europe that summer and that was it. And while I was studying in Europe, somebody said, oh, you should go to Juilliard. And I just laughed. Like, come on, Juilliard, I'll never get into Juilliard. It's like, it's the Cambridge, Oxford, Harvard, Yale of conservatories, And lo and behold, they were doing an audition here in Chicago that year, and I showed up. And back then, most days my voice was like shit, and then every once in a while, every day was on fire, and that day just seemed to click, and I got into Juilliard, and that's where the work really started.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because I did some minor stalking preparing for this, and you got one of the highest or the highest accolade from Juilliard there, or award.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I loved every second of Juilliard. It was, they would tear you apart every day, and it felt like I was on the floor, and they just said, it was like, put yourself back together. And they didn't tell you how. You just had to figure it out, because that's, you're going to be your own artist. You have to, it's not about following a rule. It's about how you want to say things in life. And that's really what it is.
And I would imagine the time that you spent in theater at school in La Crosse helped prepare you a lot too, because besides the music or the musicality of opera, you better damn well act. You have to know acting and how to, and I'm sure that's taught in opera too, but having that experience in the theater side of things too probably helped quite a bit, I would imagine.
Yeah. Well, I'll have to say, I hit Juilliard too, right at probably the best time that I know of. I got a full fellowship into the Juilliard Opera Center. So they not only I got a full full scholarship, but they actually gave me a little money to
Mm.
every year to sort of offset the rent and food.
Sure.
But the head of the opera center when I was there was a guy named Franco. Now, Frank Corsaro was the artistic director of the Actors Studio
Oh, wow.
at the time.
Really?
And so not only were we getting acting training, we were getting the best acting training possible.
Yeah.
And Frank was the real down-to-earth mensch, very intense. I mean, each class with Frank was it was like a psychotherapy breakdown. Really discovering who you were and how, and one of the most phenomenal directors ever for American opera directors and theater directors. He was incredible, and I was very fortunate to have worked with him. And he would invite the singers of Juilliard to come over to the Actors Studio.
Really?
And this is before who that just died. The kind of
I
fluffy
can't remember
guy.
his name.
But in Frank's Actors Studio day, he came out of he knew Brando and Pacino, De Niro. He knew Marilyn Monroe. The really great era, and he was like the last of the era where there were no critics allowed. People came in, they really worked their craft in a very safe atmosphere. So when we got invited, I mean, you were getting invited to a really closed door scenario, and I'm amazed there were only 3 or 4 of us that would go to the Actors Studio. A lot of singers. It's interesting. There's a lot of singers that will not go see another opera. There are a lot of singers that won't listen to the recordings. And me, I do just the opposite. I'm the biggest fan of opera. I go to every opera I can get to. If I have to learn a role, I listen to every recording I can get my hand on. But yeah, those were great days. I loved my time in Juilliard. And then after that, I ended up living in New York for about 25 years. So I just never, until I moved to Paris, I didn't think I was ever going to leave New York, to be honest.
Now, you've sung. I don't know if it's all over the world, but I mean, all over Europe, all over North America. I'm not sure if you got into South America. It's got to be. I mean, you say you lived in New York for 25 years, but you traveled a lot in that time. I mean, it's so when you, and it's probably different for each one, but on average, when you're in a cast in an opera, about how much time are you spending in some city?
Well, that's a great question, because it's one of the reasons why I love the career so much. When I go to Geneva or Zurich or Qatar or Athens, Paris, I'm there for 2 months. It's not. I can be. You really get to know a city because you have at least a month, 3 weeks to a month of rehearsal.
Okay.
And so I have the luxury of, it's not like a tourist where, you're coming to Paris and you're seeing all the highlights in 4 hours and then you're off to, the next place.
Right.
I get to discover where real Parisians go and the great local restaurants and lifestyle, and join the gyms there, or
drink the wine that Americans never drink.
Exactly. The famous mezzo, Susan Graham. we were really good friends one summer or one late summer in Paris, and no, early summer, and she was doing a concert in Bordeaux, and they paid her in cases of wine. And she was like, but I got to do it. You know, each one of these bottles is like $1,000.
Right. I don't know. I'd take that deal. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So now you have on your website. So I definitely want to post a link to your website. But you have your bio and everything on there. Do you actually have albums that you're?
Yeah, I have one. I did self-produced a CD a few years back called "Death Is the Cool Night."
Okay.
And it's not a funky. It's a German poem by Heine, and written by Johannes Brahms. But it's the English version of it. But I was really into Sonny Rollins at the time, and I just thought "Death Is the Cool Night" sounded like a great, And I tried to make the album cover very film noir, like some of his early albums. But it won the international art song competition.
Okay.
On National Public Radio, which I didn't expect, but it was really a nice bonus. So yeah, I have one. It's all in German, but it's all the same. There's Schubert and Brahms and Schumann, and I'm proud of what I did because it was all, like I say, self-produced.
Yeah, that's great.
And I want to do another one. This would be a great time if you could be with at least a few other people to do another.
Yeah, exactly.
At the time I recorded it, I was in a really dark place, and I figured I had to pull myself out of it. But it's all very dark, somber, really romantic music, and all the composers at the time that they wrote these songs were themselves in really bad places. Schubert was going through problems from his syphilis, and he was going mad. Schumann was about to go mad, and Brahms has always been mad.
We're getting, actually, from the time, we're a bit over an hour, actually.
Well, I don't care. I'm just about to pour another drink.
There you go. Oh, you're just doing straight vodka now. There you go. I emptied mine. I did mix up my gin martini.
Vodka of
the gods. Nice. You would expect that the gods are going to have a pretty great vodka.
And they do.
My favorite vodka is no longer made.
What's that?
Hammer and Sickle. And it was a fantastic Russian vodka. And about 3-4 years ago, the company went out of business. And the funny thing is, let's see, this was a little over 2 years ago now. I was celebrating my 50th birthday. And I've got a friend who is a fellow enthusiast of alcohol. And she went all over to various, and actually sent people out on her behalf too, to find whatever bottles. She got me 3 bottles of Hammer and Sickle vodka that she had found around the Chicago, Milwaukee area. So I have one left. I don't know if I'm ever going to, I have to, because, it's like wine. Wine should be drunk. So
Yeah. Yeah, wine. If you, after 10 years, you're really starting to risk it.
Yeah, unless you know are storing it perfectly and.
Yeah, even then.
um. So yeah. So as far as I guess I'll go back to opera because you starred in some pretty cool productions like what was it, Nixon, um,
Nixon in China, yes.
Nixon in China, and and you actually sounded, at least from the titles, there was a couple of musicals that you were in besides just opera. Um, it must be pretty cool to be able to just take on different parts, and everything is new every time. And you talked about some of your dream chart operas you'd like to be in. So what are some of your favorites that you've done? Oh, well, see my mind is erasing now. What are some of your favorites that you've done, and what are those ones that you really want to do?
Um, the favorite, I think if I had to pick, my favorite opera is the Thomas opera. It's a French opera, but it's Hamlet.
Oh,
And I've been fortunate enough to do 5 really great productions of Hamlet. And my friend Simon Keenly's side was, I shared the role with him. He had done it. And so basically I apprenticed it off of him and then created my own version of it. And it's just it's a real tour de force. Don Giovanni, another great opera I've done. I've done a lot of Escamillos. I won't curse it. It's an easy thing for me. It's not so easy for many people, but I think Il Trovatore, the Count de Luna, was one of my favorites. The Verdi and it's the musical Sweeney Todd.
I was just about to say,
was kind of a quasi opera. It's almost an opera anyway.
Okay.
But that was I was so fortunate to do a new production in Châtelet in Paris that it traveled the world after that. But it's a great part for a baritone and a bass baritone. It's and that production, it was dark and bloody and really a great atmosphere. It really scared the audience. And you know, it wasn't, there was no fluff about it. Even when there was humorous, there was a humor that we're laughing, but it's laughter like, fuck, what's going to come next? You know? Yeah.
Yes, I saw that. I saw you did Sweeney Todd. I'm like, oh yeah, that had to be a lot of fun.
That was really amazing. The roles that I'm really, one of the reasons why I started the company in Chicago, and in fact, what I did in Kenosha with was kind of a little bit inspired there, because we did an all Italian evening that day. But I met a conductor here in Chicago, and he's from Rome, and his name is Emanuele Andrizzi, and we started talking about creating this festival of Italian music that, by the great composers Verdi, Donizetti, Rossini, Bellini, that aren't done. They're done in Europe all the time. They're done in every year, but it's interesting because Chicago Lyric used to be called La Scala West. But then we look through, you know, they've never done this opera, they've never done this opera, they've never done
Really?
these operas. And okay, I'm going to speak in big generalizations, but the North American singer is the best trained singer. But we have the least amount of opportunities.
Really? Huh.
And so we wanted to create this company that was doing repertoire of the great composers, Puccini, Rossini, Verdi especially, Donizetti, Mascagni, that are not like the Cinderella, Barber of Seville, La Traviata, Rigoletto. You know, those are done a lot. But the same, but Chicago and the Midwest, they have not heard, and the United States, they have not heard a lot of this great repertoire, which they do all the time. So I'm combining that with the fact that I've met a lot of great American singers, some who have sung at the Met, all over the world, Italy, France, etc. And the industry has changed so fast that now, you know, you get these bullshit. Hey, the 20 greatest opera singers of the generation. They're only the 20 greatest because they have the recording contracts.
Right.
And some of them, rightly so, are amazing. Elena Garancha, phenomenal. You know, but many of them, okay, they're good, but there are a lot of great. Matthew Polenzani is probably one of the greatest tenors of the world. He doesn't have a recording contract. So many singers that I've heard are phenomenal, and I can bring them to Chicago now and say, hey, we're going to do this opera that hasn't been done in Chicago, hasn't been done in the United States, but it's still Verdi, it's still Donizetti, it's still Rossini. Do you want to come and do it? Or some great Met singer who has been overlooked because of the current situation, and bring them here, and then also combine an educational program where there's a lot of there's Northwestern, DePaul, Roosevelt, there's a lot of great young artists coming up. I sang in Miami a couple of years ago, and the young artists, they were phenomenal, way better than I was at their age. And, you know, they should have been already having careers, and they're worried about which next young artist program they're going to be in. And it's because there is not enough opportunity. I'm not going to solve all the problems of the world, but at least I can start giving back and start creating something where I can give back a little bit and create something new, and something that a singer will be able to use as cachet, and maybe then get a job in Germany or France or Italy or somewhere else. So we have a young artistic director from London, and she's directing all over the world already, and she directs the International Opera Awards. She's our artistic director. We have a conductor from Rome. I'm from here. And our general director, he used to run the Lake Forest Symphony, and he's a composer. So that's the group of four. Oh, and our new director of development has got a great pedigree. Her father was a general director of Opera Omaha, and she worked for Chicago and Omaha, and she was an agent. And so, yeah, we're putting together this great company that hopefully can generate creating something new with the old. You know, I love tradition. I love modern stuff too, but you have to know. For me, I mean, you have to know tradition. If you're going to break tradition, you have to know what you're going to break. You know, you have to know why you're breaking tradition. And to me, I want to present to, and especially the American audience, they like traditional opera so they understand it a little more. Whereas in Germany and France, it's more of the fabric of their society. So they can go to see Traviata or La Boheme, like they did in Paris, at La Boheme on the Moon. They can do it. For them, they can make the jump easily. But
Yeah.
I don't think we're there yet. And it's to me, I want to bring that core of really great acting, technique, solidity, bring in established artists and put them together with young, growing, really good young artists, young musicians, young stage hands, together with veterans, and really create a nice symbiotic relationship.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that sounds great. Because you're getting the people that want to make a career in that into that. You're introducing something old as something new around here. And the one thing that, I'm big into lots of different music, and I love, we talked about this classical music. I love symphony. The one that I probably have the least interest in is ballet, but that's probably, I don't know why, but opera, it's a shame that, that it's not, it seems to be something that has been on the decline for so long.
Yeah.
There's got to be something. And it's funny, I used to listen a lot to classical radio, and I finally came to the conclusion that classical music is dying because of classical, not musicians, but the establishment, because they're often it's very inaccessible.
If it's dying or if it's changing. If you're in Europe, it's not dying.
Okay.
And you'll go walk through the streets of Vienna, and the streets are named after conductors and singers and composers. And on the radio all the time, there's something. On television almost every night is an opera or a symphony. In the States, it's a little different. I think, in the 90s, in the age of conspicuous consumption, it was really popular. Everybody was going to the opera because it was the thing to do. It was a show that you were a little sophisticated it will come back to the opera is really something in the human subconscious. Especially in the Western human subconscious, whether or not they're immigrants or not. Excuse me. Yes, it has changed. But ever since I started, it was like, it's not like what it used to be. It's not like what it used. It's the money. It's less now this year than it was last. I've heard that story about the arts ever since I started. Yeah. So it's about humanity and how they tell stories. We are storytellers. You look at it on what's happening on the news today, and it's all about who tells the story
right
the best and the loudest and the angriest, or it's all about right now a story. And if I hear the word narrative again, I want to put a rusty pop can into their mouth. But storytelling is what we do, and opera is a great vehicle for storytelling.
Yeah, that's for sure.
I think it will survive at least another 500 years. I don't know what it will look like, but I don't. The vodka's starting to trickle in.
Well, let me, okay. And I don't know why I'm bringing this up because it's not opera at all. But I think, so, okay, I'm not sure. You probably haven't seen too much of my posts, but, you know, I sing and I do the Sinatra stuff, which I absolutely love doing. That's for me. In fact, I'm a huge consumer of any kind of live Sinatra videos that I can see because he was just such a fantastic performer. But I'm also into comedy. I've always loved comedy, and I've actually started about 3 years ago, just at some open mics doing stand-up comedy.
Wow.
So, and I've, which is actually the most terrifying thing I've ever done. But I love it. I absolutely love doing it. So I have to paint that background because of what I'm about to say. And it has to do with Shakespeare. You've watched the show The Sopranos.
Yes.
So here's my idea. You tell me if it's something that that some Shakespeare company would buy into. You take probably Julius Caesar. I'm thinking that's probably the one to do. But cast it with not the actual cast, but a Sopranos-like cast. So they're talking like that. Hey, fucking you too, Brutus, you know, just talking like that. I think it would be hilarious. And it would make it pretty accessible. And they all be in the jumpsuits and stuff, you know?
I would imagine it has already been done often. Knowing how Shakespeare has been taken and put in different time periods, I'm sure somebody has put it into the mafia, the 30s and 40s era.
Well, 30s and 40s era, yeah, but I'm talking 90s era.
Yeah,
you know, jumpsuits.
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought I was a genius when I thought of it, but it's
no,
probably
but
because
that's what makes it exciting. And then when you go see it, it's like, yeah.
I don't know if you can really do that with opera because you can't.
Oh
sing
yeah,
quite
you
that
can,
way.
and they do it often.
Really?
They do it often. Yes, I've been in many of those.
So that was a question I was going to ask you. What's the weirdest production you've ever done that you're like, holy shit, this is bizarre?
I have to be careful. I did a Pearl Fishers, but the opera by Bizet in Zurich. And it was set, you know, the Pearl Fishers is a very exotic opera set on an island, you know, a lot of flowing robes. It's just a tale. It's not based in any reality, but the idea of it is the French exoticism period. And then when I did it, you know, and you study it, and that's part of the real, like I said earlier, like you have to be flexible like a willow tree. You know, you study a role, you study, you know, you listen to all the different recordings, you watch as many videos as you can, and then you show up for the first day of rehearsal, and then they tell you the production.
Okay. So you don't even know the production at the time.
You don't know what, you don't know the production. You don't.
Oh, wow.
Maybe. Oh, yeah. Some people look like. Well, now with the websites, yes, you can see who you're going to sing with. But before that, you never knew who you even were going to sing with, or who your director was when you signed the contract. You just signed the contract as you.
Okay.
And even now, before the websites and before they make the announcements, you sign the contract. You don't know who you're going to work with. You don't know the director necessarily, or the conductor, or your other singers. And you're not going to know the concept of the production.
Wow. Wow.
I've done this Pearl Fishers I did in Zurich, and and you think you're going to have a long wig with your, push-ups because all the traditional ones you have pecked out. You're very exotic, you're very handsome, dashing guy. And the director is from Germany, and he said, "Yeah, I have these ideas that you're like a combination between Stalin and Mao Zedong." But you are on a modern day ocean liner, one of these big fuck all.
Yeah.
What do you even call them?
Cruise ships. Yeah, the big cruise ships. Yeah.
Not a cruise ship, but these big working barges.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I was like, gone is the exotic. Gone is the dashing, all the push-ups and all the working out you've done to get into the role, just to look good on this. And you're in this very 70s communist era olive green jacket. And you just say, okay, I'll work with it and try to make it work. And sometimes you go home and you throw your store across the room, or a lot of times you really the ego is amazing, and we all have healthy. If you're going to be an opera, you have to have a healthy ego, and then you also have to know how to put it in the corner and tell sit down and shut up. Right. But it's a very clever fucker, and it will get you, and it has damaged me often. But you just kind of like, okay, this is the situation, this is it, how do I do it the best that I can? And it's tough because you want to be faithful to yourself, you want to be faithful to the composer and tradition, and yet you want to create something for the public. This new performance. It's like wanting to get into it's wanting to get into a Maserati, and they're going to say, hey, this VW Beetle is the Maserati. Really? Okay. Right.
It's a Maserati.
It's a Maserati. We're going to do it. The notes are all the Maserati music, and what you're driving is the Yugo.
Right. Yeah, we've taken the Maserati engine and we've put it in this Volkswagen Beetle. Try to drive it and look cool.
And again, that's what the Europeans understand more than the North Americans.
Yeah.
And somebody really clever can create something like that.
Yeah.
But a lot of times I find that directors do it for shock value. They really, there was a great American Shakespearean actor. His name's Randall Duck Kim. You know him from the movie with Keanu Reeves. What was the great trilogy that he did?
The Matrix.
The Matrix.
Yeah.
Randall Duck Kim is in the Matrix as the key man, but he's from Spring Green. He was created the American Players Theater.
Okay.
He's one of the great American actors.
Okay.
And he's from Hawaii originally, but he once said, I don't mind updating Shakespeare if every piece works. If you have 12 scenes that work in a new period and a new concept, but the 13th scene is forced, it doesn't work. Then it's, you can't just skip over that. And people know that it doesn't work. And it's the same in opera. If you're going to update something, it's got to be completely fluid.
Mm-hmm.
When they did La Boheme on Broadway, it was with Baz Luhrmann. It was phenomenal. I mean, it was updated to the post-war, early 50s, when artists were still struggling, Paris was still struggling, people were poor. It worked. On the moon, I'm not sure I would be there yet. Maybe somebody with a lot more intelligence than I would make that work, but I'm not sure I can do that.
Yeah, on the moon, maybe Mars, but the moon, I don't know.
I bet you within 100 years they'll hear opera on Mars, though.
Oh, probably.
I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure, but not the moon. Fuck that. Well, I'm out of.
You need a drink.
I need a drink, and my shaker's empty. So
go get one. Put it on pause and come back.
I could do that. Well, I'll come up with a thought. I'll be back in about 5 minutes. Not even 5 minutes. 2 minutes. Let me pause this. All right.
Right.
I'm back. Oh, and you're eating.
Have a piece of pizza.
Well, you're in Chicago. That's what you should be eating. I decided to go closer to your route in the second. Well, actually, it's my third drink. Just some. I had the gin handy. I put that in there, and I don't know if you can see, but I have some big balls in the freezer.
Bragger.
I always appreciate. So, is that pizza from a local establishment by you?
No, it's one of those screaming Sicilians.
Oh, I've had those. So speaking, okay, so let's get a little off subject here. Actually, I was thinking, I don't know how much time you spent in Kenosha lately, but there's some great places. You should come up and try. Have you been to Frank's Diner before?
Where?
Frank's Diner.
I'm not sure. No.
Oh my God, you got to go to Frank's Diner sometime. It's an old train car. It's a diner.
Oh no.
I love going there on Sundays. Weekends they're packed, so you have to wait in line. I love the whole show. You're waiting in line. You get pushed around by the staff. They have to because the place is packed.
Yeah.
And they're very sassy, which is fun. And the food is phenomenal. If you eat there every day, you will die within a couple years.
Okay.
But, it's that good. I love that place. So definitely, since you're in the area, once things open up, you should come on up. But I thought it would be funny. There's a lot of open mics that happen in Kenosha now. There's tons of them. Mm-hmm. I sing at a couple of them myself. Should come on up. We'll do an open mic together. I have to go first, though. There's no way I could follow you. Well, let some other poor son of a bitch follow you. I'll get up there, and where is it? Yeah. And this is my band.
That's your band?
Yeah. I just backing tracks. I just put backing tracks on my phone and hook it up to the PA. Okay. And then have you go up there. Yeah. And because people are in Kenosha, unless they've heard of you, especially at these open mics, it'd be funny to, there's this new guy, Franco, he wants to give it a try, and you get up there and do what you do and blow their fucking brains off.
No,
I think that'd be fun.
I'd like to come back to Kenosha.
So, yeah,
do a concert.
You should do that. Yeah, let's keep in touch on that. So, but you're in Chicago, so some of the best food around. I know it's you got to keep yourself in shape, but what's favorite pizza?
Favorite pizza, I
Yeah.
think, is
Are you a deep dish guy?
no. I like deep dish, but it's not my favorite.
Okay.
Um, I think probably the best pizza I've had in North America is Barnaby's Pizza. Um,
Barnaby's.
Barnaby's. And they've been there for at least 50 years,
Yeah.
45, 50 years. I hadn't been there in maybe 30 years, and I went back, and it's as spectacular as I remembered it. And I'm up until these dark days,
Yeah.
been going probably every time I come back to Chicago, if probably every twice a month at least. They have the best pepperoni pizza I know of.
That's Barnaby's in where what town is that in?
Right off 94 in Northbrook, Illinois.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
remember my dad when I was a kid, he'd bring us there once in a while because he worked down in Northbrook. So
I think that's my favorite. That's really my favorite in that I can. There used to be a place downtown Chicago for deep dish called Pizza Capri, but they've moved. It wasn't so good after the move.
there's something about those ovens that
Yeah.
because like Gino's East, their original location, the pizza was phenomenal, but they moved their downtown and it's just not the same.
Yeah, it's true. The ovens need seasoning and light. I mean, everything's connected, you know. And ovens and they take on a life of their own, and
Yeah.
you can't just pick up and move and think that it's going to.
And that's why I don't like the Uno's and even Lou Malnati's, which is one of my favorites. They have their little chains, you know, that are out there. It's not the same as going to the originals downtown.
No,
Yeah, not at all.
Probably where's the best pizza I've had? Maybe Napoli or Nice. Nice had good pizza. Napoli had,
Well, that's the
pizza.
Yeah.
Paris is good. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of great pizza in the world, but if you just want a thin crust pepperoni pizza,
Barnaby's.
Barnaby's.
I'll have to get back there because I haven't been there since, like I said, I was a kid.
Yeah.
I just remember every once in a while, Mom would pack us into a car, and she'd go, "We're going to go see Dad," and you know, meet him at his work, which was always fun. And then we went to Barnaby's, and the atmosphere was always fun too.
Yeah.
My favorite pizza here in Kenosha, and I don't just want to talk about pizza, but I could eat pizza every day and not get tired of it. I love it.
Yes.
I don't. I try not to. Up here in Kenosha, there's a place. It's lots of Italians in Kenosha, lots of Italian restaurants, and there's always a big argument here. Best pizza in Kenosha, because there's a lot of good places. My favorite's up on the north side. It's called Casa Capri.
Okay.
Nice, very thin crust. Real. They cook it so that the crust is crispy all the way through, which is nice. And they make their own sausage, and they pre-cook the pepperoni so the pizza doesn't get super greasy. It's really nice.
My grandmother in Kenosha used to make her I don't know if she ever. I don't remember ever eating box pasta from her. She always made her own pasta, and I loved her gnocchi and her ravioli.
Yeah.
But I remember back in the early 70s when I'd have, and my best friend lived in the house behind me, and he'd come over, and you know, in the 70s, Italian restaurants were not big things yet.
Right.
And Italian food was like Chef Boyardee, which tasted to me like chalk, you know. And I remember my friend Peter coming over going, his name is Peter Braun. He's a doctor now. He's like, oh my God. Whenever you have food, whenever your mom or your grandmother gives leftovers, please invite me. And it was really tough to find. I mean, I'm very critical of Italian. I just do not go to Italian restaurants normally because from an Italian family, it's really tough.
Yeah.
You know, there's so much love and life that goes into a sauce that it's really hard to make it. But in New York, there were a lot of great Italian restaurants, at least for a long time. That was like, oh, that's new, that's different. But pizza, New York pizza and like Barnum, it's not even
very different. Very
not,
different.
Yeah, very different.
Yeah.
And you know, I remember I was always trying to find a New York. Sometimes I'd find a good New York pizza, and then of course they go out of business. You know, New Yorkers like the pizza like they like it, and Chicagoans like the pizza like they. The La Crosse had a great pizzeria called Dave's. Was it Dave's Pizza? Dave's Pizza.
Okay.
I remember they had good ones. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's funny because New Yorkers, there's no pizza like theirs. And but my favorite thing, one of my great heroes, one of my idols is Anthony Bourdain. And his favorite pizza was Chicago pizza. And I'm like, yeah, all right, I like that.
The thick crust or the thin, or it didn't matter?
No, he liked the thick crust, but he preferred the thin.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I know some New Yorkers that, you know, we have this argument about pizza, and I do like thick crust pizza, or the Chicago style, as they call it. And the argument always boils down to, okay, so if we don't call it pizza, is it good? And they're like, well, yeah. So if we call it like a casserole, you're going to say that it's really fucking good. And they're like, oh yeah, it's great, but just don't call it pizza.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh my God.
Have you been to the Italian Village in Chicago?
I have. I've been there a couple of times. That's phenomenal. And it's funny because I used to work with a guy, 20, 30 years ago, and his dad was the executive chef at Italian Village, but he was already retiring out. He would just go in and make sauces and, get things started.
Yeah.
But what an amazing place.
I like it. The food is, it's good.
Mm-hmm.
It's good, but I like it because of the atmosphere. It's very rich. And they're very, here's it when Leontine Price in the 60s, when she was the big American soprano star, she couldn't, because she was black, she could not get served. Chicago. The Italian Village was the only that would have her in.
Wow.
And I love that. And you walk in and Pavarotti's been there, and all these great opera singers have been there and it's still got that old flavor, I love the place just for the atmosphere.
Oh yeah.
And the bar is incredible.
Well, yeah, and
they pour a great drink, and the food is great. It's not like your grandmother's, but it's going to be.
Well, and I love places like that. There's another favorite place of mine. It's not an Italian place, but downtown, it's Miller's Pub.
Oh yeah, that's
it's the same thing. You're walking back into the 60s, 70s, and I love the fact that the bartenders there are middle-aged guys or more, and they're not hot dogging. They're just, you want a Manhattan? Okay, boom, here it is. There's no big fancy tricks to it, and they make a solid drink too.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, it's this old fashioned, no nonsense
I
bar.
like the area up around the border between Illinois and some of those old supper clubs. I used
Oh
to
yeah,
love supper clubs.
yeah.
You know, the wood paneling and the Friday fish and
There's a place up in so it's on Sheridan Road, right along the lake, just before you get into Racine. So
yeah.
it's still in Kenosha County. It's called Hobnob, and
Yeah,
it's
my parents have been there. I have not been there yet.
do yourself a favor. You got to go there just for and sit in the bar area.
Okay.
Well, the main bar, they have several. It's like stepping back into the mid 70s.
Yeah.
You've got it's I can't even describe how gaudy the decorations are. And they haven't changed a thing. It's all the original stuff. It's beautiful.
But for really good meals, I had a great meal at Gibson's right on the Chicago River.
Yeah. Yeah,
Great
that's
wine, great food. I think the best steak I ever had. I don't know if the place exists anymore. Oh crap! The vodka's really kicking in.
in Chicago.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's George Diamond's.
Okay.
I'm not sure it's there anymore. But
Okay.
that was probably the best steak I ever ate. And I went back 15 years later and I had another one and it was just as good. When they make a steak that melts, melts before you even chew it, only time in my life that I really had that kind.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. This is so. Besides,
the Gauge is good. If you want one of the best, like the bison, they have a bison burger or a venison burger at the Gauge on Michigan Avenue. That's worth it. Okay. Really a good menu.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite topics besides music and art is food, because I love eating. That's one of my problems.
I mean, what the rest, the basic stuff is eating, drinking, and sex.
And sex, right?
The rest is all tertiary.
I just don't understand people who are not excited by food.
Yeah.
And there are some people like that. It's, I just eat to live. I don't get it.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, yeah, we've been talking for quite a while. I think I've drained my drink pretty well again.
You sponge?
Well, I call myself a professional alcoholic, so. Yeah.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It was
yeah. Thanks for taking the time. I really do appreciate it, and I definitely I'll put your website up there. I really look forward to seeing something come out of the opera festival that you're doing.
Okay.
Next year, and definitely will bring my sons to see that.
Good.
So and let me know if you want to go hit an open mic in Kenosha. We'll do that sometime.
Well, we can definitely switch it up and hit a bourbon bar or something.
There you go. Sounds great. Okay. Well, thanks a lot, and best wishes to you with everything. Cheers.
Cheers.